Hello everyone. As I promised in other videos, I have dedicated the entire day today, Sunday, to playing Scott's bass, to getting to know the instruments better. Wow. Yeah, it's opening up. I started out bowing the open strings, getting her to open up and vibrate a little more. Then I've just been practicing. I had a friend of mine come over and we played a bunch of duos, and I've also been playing along with the solos. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Phil Palombi. About 5 years ago, I created this book, the Scott LaFaro transcription book. It's 15 solo transcriptions that I did from Sunday to Vanguard and Waltz for Debbie. The reason being is those are the first two records I ever bought. Vinyl, big 12-inch plastic vinyl discs. Maybe you remember those. And they were just, when I first got into jazz, they were, the first things I heard that just caught my ear, the sound of the recordings. Just the sound of the bass, the piano, the room, everything. And then of course Scott's playing. I was just starting out playing acoustic bass when I was about 18 years old, and I heard those recordings. And they've been a companion with me my entire life, my entire professional life as well. And about 7 years ago, I thought I was just going to, I transcribed some Scott before, and I thought, well, let me transcribe, a few more, and then 1 or 2 became 3 or 4, was turned into 15. And then I realized nobody had ever published the book before. So I thought, all right, the world needs to have these solos. So I was put in touch with Eliot Fernandez, Scott's sister, and she was amazingly gracious in letting me be the person to actually publish these solos. I'll forever be thankful. And the great cover art is, Eliot Fernandez. The Fernandez part comes from Helene's husband, Manny Fernandez, who is, a tremendous painter. It's just, I have to print this upstairs actually. It's just such a great painting. They let me use this for the cover. Incidentally, you could buy this print, and all proceeds go to the Scott LaFaro Memorial Scholarship Fund. Forgive me if I am saying, not quite saying it exactly how it's supposed to be worded. Let me see, it's 24 inches wide by 38 inches tall for your home studio. Yeah, the Scott LaFaro Prize Fund for the jazz division of the biennial ISB double bass competition. So you could own a poster and contribute to a good cause. So, the bass. I was given the incredible opportunity with the encouragement of Helene and permission of Barry Colstein, who owns this instrument, to use it for recording this week. So I'm going into the studio. I wanted to do a tribute for Scott. 2011 is the 50th anniversary of Scott's passing, and I wanted to do a tribute CD. He's just been I feel like he's been with me my entire life, just listening to these recordings, and I feel like I know him almost. And so I wanted to make a tribute CD. So I hired Don Friedman, who I played with a lot. Don was Scott's roommate. He has this great story about him and Scott throwing a dirty old couch in East River and just tons of great stuff. So I thought who better than, Don to play piano, and Eliot Zigmund, the great Eliot Zigmund, who I've played with a bunch as well. And, Eliot was in Bill Evans' band years after Scott had passed, but he was in a band with it was him and Eddie Gomez. And another one of my favorite Bill Evans trios too. Eliot's one of my favorite drummers. And we play a lot, and one day we're playing as a trio right in this basement actually, and it just dawned on me, it's like, it sounds amazing, man, these guys are great, it sounds like that music I've been hearing, since, the recordings I listened to, from the 60s, except it's happening now, it's authentic. These guys are pioneers in the field of the piano trio. So I really wanted to use them. And they agreed, and then it just snowballed from there. Helene mentioned, hey, you should use Scott's bass, and Barry thought it was a great idea, and yeah, it's been amazing.
My observations. Now, I have to make some corrections to my book, actually. I assumed that Scott, everybody said Scott had low action, but when I started playing these solos, when I was transcribing them, I was able to play them on my basses with higher action. And so I thought, well, Scott gets such a big sound out of his instrument, he couldn't have had the strings down low because, you know, he was projecting so much. Well, now that I'm actually playing Scott's bass, I'm here to tell you, the strings aren't that, I mean, I raised them a little bit even, but when they're lower, this bass just speaks, man. I could work harder, I could pull the strings up and it wouldn't put out any more sound. With low action even, I mean, I'm barely working, man, and the bass just shoots the sound out. So, yeah, I got to resend that. Plus, of course, Barry told me that no, Scott really did play lower action, and I see why. I mean, you don't have to work to get the sound out. It's crazy, and it's real even. The sound here, whether it's down here or up here, it's the same amount of effort. On every bass I've ever had, when I've gone up high, I had to either play harder, or I had to change my technique or something to get the sound out, to make it project. This thing just wants to speak. I mean, I almost hate to say that a bass will be responsible for somebody being a good player, because that's not entirely true. But playing this bass is changing my playing. It just opened my eyes to, how important a bass is. I mean, it's one thing that the bass sounds good, but finding that combination of a bass that has the sound and then has the playability. I've never played a bass like this in my life, and I've played a lot of basses. The strings, I had some questions about the strings. The strings are Barry Colstein's strings, the Colstein bass strings. I'm not sure the exact model. Email Barry, he'll tell you. But he said that, let me get this straight, they're a synthetic gut core and a steel wrap. He said that they're probably the closest strings to what Scotty actually used that you can get today. What I hear is down low on the instrument. It sounds exactly like the recordings. But when I get up higher, it just about sounds like the recordings. So, and I think that's only a limitation of the, I'm assuming Scott was using what is it, golden spirals or the exposed gut or something. So it's more of it's probably the upper register is colored a little bit by these metal windings. Would be I'm not an expert on it. Barry probably talk a little more about it. But I do hear, like, when I get in the upper register, I could still hear that core of Scott's sound in there, but I think what I'm missing is whatever the actual string Scott was using. But that's on a totally geeky note. I mean, the tone of the bass is still up there. It's just like I feel something. I hear something that's not quite as exact as it sounds down here. And I think it's just from the different wraps of the different types of strings. This is day 2, a collection of bass improvisations.